Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's June the 7th. It's Tuesday, and it's 2 o'clock. So that means it's time for Childbirth Today from Perinatal Education Associates, where we talk about a lot of different things. Today, we are going to chat with Barbara Harper. Again, she's having a little bit of problems getting into the Blab area. Sign in with your Twitter account. And that makes it a lot easier to get in. What we're going to be talking about while we're waiting for Barbara to get online, one of the things that I want to bring to everyone's attention is the topic of workplace bullying in maternity care. I wrote a blog last week about this. It was more out of frustration than a lot of things. I know several friends and colleagues who have been the object of bullying in a hospital setting, one that was bullied by her business partner, bullying in community doula groups. This type of thing has become widespread, and it's very bothersome. So I wrote an op-ed piece, not one that was typically evidence-based or research-based, and I got a tremendous response from that. I think I had 500 or 600 reads on it in about 24 hours time. So that's pretty significant. It certainly sounds like it's a hot topic, and I don't know whether you have experienced that or not, but let us know if you've had that experience, and we can certainly talk about it, chat about it, and maybe we can make that for a future blab. Maybe that would be a good thing to do. Well, it looks like Barbara is signed on, and all we need her to do is to press the call-in button, and there she comes, and she's like, "Hello, Barbara."
Hey, I figured it out.
Yay, that's great. It's wonderful to see you.
Wow. So
I have devoted the whole half an hour to you.
okay.
Maybe you can share with us, I know you've been traveling extensively worldwide, and maybe share with us some of those things that you have found in terms of differences in maternity care in different communities across the world, and then definitely always share about Waterbirth and the things that you know about that. So I'm just going to turn it right over to you and let you chat.
Well, I like when there's questions, but I can certainly talk about my adventures in China and India, Dubai, United Arab Emirates, Portugal. Those were the last 4 countries that I was in. I leave a week from today for Spain. I'll be in Barcelona, Cambrils, where else? Castellón, San Sebastian, and Vigo. So 5 cities in Spain. And then Lisbon. I'll end up in Portugal on July 14th, and then I come back to the States. And I'm home. Let's see, where's home? Oh, Boca Raton, Florida. I'm home for 2 whole weeks, with one exception. I'm going to Sioux City,
Iowa?
no, South Dakota, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So,
Okay.
and there are planes that go there. And Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Terry Engelman is a CNM. And because of the ACOG statement in April of 2014, her hospital demanded that she stop her successful water birth practice. And we have been working since April of 2014 to get her back to serve the clients in her practice that want Waterbirth. And I've been sending studies. I've been working with Jennifer Vanderlaan, who's a CNM MPH at Emory, working on her PhD in nursing. And Jennifer has now compiled 40 Waterbirth studies to do a meta-analysis.
Oh, great.
There are 2 other meta-analyses that have been recently published, one from the UK and one from a nonprofit organization that didn't quite know how to do the science. So we're going to have to throw that one out. But Jennifer's meta-analysis with her partner, Patricia Hill, is going to be absolutely incredibly wonderful. And she and I were discussing last week whether to publish it in a medical journal or a nursing journal. And I voted for the nursing journal because it is peer reviewed. The A1 Joggin journal is peer reviewed. And who do we have the most problem with for Waterbirth in the US? Nurses. Because nurses are as a whole, not as well read and follow research as much out of their own career and their own journals as do midwives, and physicians have a choice of journals from around the world, but nurses tend to only read Joggin, and if it's published a meta-analysis of the Waterbirth literature, which basically says that Waterbirth is better for babies, which I've been saying for how many years, easier for moms and better for babies. That's my byline on waterbirth.org. And this meta-analysis, when Jennifer called me and she goes, Barbara, Waterbirth isn't as good as bed birth or standing birth or squatting birth, wherever you want to be. Land birth, surf and turf is what I call them. Waterbirth isn't as good as birth in the air. It's better. So she waited for that dramatic pause and then said, in all of the studies that she's reviewed so far, it is much better than air birth. And that's when looking at the outcomes of babies, and that's what ACOG and AAP were objecting to. They said Waterbirth has some serious concern for harm to infants, and so that's what we've been focusing on for this last 2 years. And I praise and thank ACOG every day, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the American Congress, they've changed their name to the American
Right.
Congress of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. I praise them every day because we needed some vibrant research in the US, and we didn't have it. We needed some peer review research. We've got peer review research and the Cochrane database in the UK. We've got researchers in Australia, researchers in Germany, Switzerland, but we really needed to get it going in the US. So I'm happy for that, and every single place I go, I say, come on, clinical governance. It's not so much of what you do, but how do you do it? How do you keep track of it? I want to know your statistics, because stories sell, but statistics tell. They tell us the story of what's really happening in the world. So take China, for instance. 1996, I got the statistics from the Chinese Department of Health, and in 1996, their cesarean rate was 6.9%. 6.9. And today, the Chinese government will sanction a hospital, a public hospital, if their cesarean rate goes over 70%. And there are quite a few public hospitals that are much lower than that, but many, many private hospitals that are much higher than that. We're talking 80, 85% cesarean section rate. And you go to the Middle East. I was at a conference in Alexandria, Egypt in November of 2015, and every single doctor that presented was giving their statistics on the cesarean rates in Cairo, at this hospital and that hospital, and in other cities in Egypt, and they were all over 80%. And at dinner with a group of presenters and the heads of some of the hospitals, one of the doctors said, I just don't know why women are asking for cesareans. And 20 years ago, I said to a doctor in Mexico that are you obligated to do the surgery when a woman asks? And why is she asking? Let's step back a moment. Why is she asking for a cesarean? Well, fear is number one, but what is she afraid of? And so I leaned over and told this doctor, I said, I know why women are asking for cesarean sections in Egypt and China and Thailand and Argentina and Mexico and Turkey and Iran, and you just go around the world where their C-section rates are very high. And I said, okay, this is what's going on. You've got two choices. Behind door A is a birth experience where you are alone. You're on a narrow table. Your feet are up in stirrups. You will be cut. Every single country still does episiotomy as mandatory. You will be shamed for being pregnant. You will be tortured emotionally, mentally, and physically. You will be hit. You will be laughed at. You will be made fun of. You will be basically raped on the table, and your baby's going to be pulled out, and you are going to be separated from that baby for anywhere from 2 to 15 hours. And that's behind door A. And you've heard all the stories from all your friends, and you don't want that. You would like what's behind door B, which is a 20-minute surgery where you can be completely numb, not feel anything, and you'll deal with the after effects later for the next year until you get pregnant again, and then you do another surgery all over again. So, and the doctor leaned in and he goes, I've never heard anyone talk about rape and birth in the same sentence. And he said, if that's what's going on, will you come here to Egypt and help us change it? And I said, yes, as a matter of fact, and I have a lot of friends that I'd like to bring with me. So that's pretty much how it goes in every country. Women are asking for the cesarean sections, and the doctors are saying, well, this makes it easier on us, because one doctor in Turkey told me I can do 5 C-sections before office hours, and I can do 7 after office hours, and I can go home and sleep at night and
Right.
not worry. And the month that I was at that hospital outside of Istanbul, there was one vaginal birth, and that was the one that I attended. So it was It's just become more convenient for almost everybody. And the doctors in China will find every single reason to do a C-section and veil it in, well, this is better for you and better for your baby. It's safer for you. It's safer for your baby. You're under 18, so automatic C-section. You're over 35, so automatic C-section. Your baby is an estimated fetal weight of 3.6 kilograms, automatic C-section. Anything over 3.5. Oh, and this is my favorite one. In all of these countries, they do ultrasounds every prenatal visit, and they will do an automatic C-section if there's a cord around the neck, a cord around the leg, a cord around the hand, a cord around the waist. They'll do an automatic C-section. But the women in China are waking up. I teach workshops every single week when I'm there, and they're starting to know what to ask for. And woohoo, my book came out, Gentle Birth Choices, is published now in Mandarin, and in the first week it sold 2,000 copies. So women are waking up, and a very good friend of mine asked me to attend her home Waterbirth in Xi'an, China, and she's been in several of my workshops, and that happened on Friday, May 13th, and she's writing a book called My Second Baby, because now it's legal to have a second baby in China. So all the women are preparing for their second babies. And another friend of mine in China was told at age 40 that she had to have an abortion because it was unsafe to give birth after age 40. But she gave birth in November and asked me to name her baby. Her name is Kui Ping. English name is Janice, and I was happy to name her baby Samuel, because Samuel's a very strong person in the Bible, and she's a Christian woman, and so I got to meet baby Sam, and of course you know that my oldest son is named Sam, so that left me, crying when she asked me to name her healthy baby boy, born at 40 years old.
So Barbara, I have a question. Of all of these countries that you have talked about, is there no midwifery for low-risk women, or is everyone kind of pulled together into one group and they are taken care of by the obstetricians?
Midwifery in China does exist. It's an upper level degree. The doctors, it's kind of like the Soviet system. The doctors and the midwives all go to the same school for the first 2 years, and then they branch off. And so if you want to become a dentist, a doctor, a midwife, you all go to the same program. You learn anatomy, physiology, all of those things, and then you branch out. So midwifery in China, there's two main Chinese midwifery organizations. There's the Maternal Child Health Association, for which I lectured at their conference this year to 4,000 midwives. And that was pretty awesome. And several years ago, I taught a full-day workshop for one of the other midwifery organizations, of which there's about 20,000 members, and that helped push the movement forward quite a bit. But the problem with midwifery in China is it's not autonomous. There's still doctors that overrule what's going on, and the doctors don't want to change. The doctors are not being taught the anatomy and physiology and physiologic birth the way that you and I can go online and research that, about delayed cord clamping and physiologic third stage and skin to skin. And So the opportunity to teach all of those things in India and in China is very great. India has absolutely no midwifery. It was completely wiped out. And so obstetricians are in charge of every birth. And it's a system that has to change, and we're working on it. We're working on instituting midwifery schools through nursing programs, direct entry midwifery schools, and that will come about definitely. Midwifery in Egypt was completely wiped out. So most of the Middle Eastern countries, although Iran has probably the highest rate of C-section, but they also have the most midwives. There's probably 20,000 midwives in Iran. No, they told me 60,000 midwives in Iran, because I started doing some online classes for midwives in Tehran. So it goes back and forth. There's a lot of hope in Spain and Portugal because the midwifery associations are very vibrant, and I always enjoy going there. And we're getting Waterbirth instituted in lots of different small hospitals in Spain and Portugal. And the problem with my teaching Waterbirth in India, and got a hair on my face there, and teaching in India and China, was I would much prefer that they learn gentle birth first, and then switch over to, after they've got it down on how to allow a woman, like friend of Dr. Vijaya Krishnan in Hyderabad. She has the Healthy Mother Clinic, and women give birth standing and squatting and kneeling and on the floor and in the water, rarely in the bed except for postpartum, leaning against a birth pole. She's just phenomenal. We need, 20,000 Vijayas to go across India to do this. Because I've had doctors look at me in the eyes and, okay, fill in the blank. This is a favorite quote of mine. I have to do an episiotomy. Women in fill in the blank, this country, their vaginas are smaller than everyone else. So, and so therefore, I have to do that. Honestly, I've had women doctors tell me that. So I was overcome at a hospital presentation in Mumbai, India, when this doctor told me that very thing, and then asked.
What do you say? What do you say when someone says that to you?
I kept quiet. I was kind of moderating her talk, and she turned back to me and said, well, what do you think? And this is the explanation. Indian women are virgins when they get married, and so they get pregnant right away, and Indian doctors don't condone or allow women when they're pregnant to have sexual intercourse. So therefore, you understand that the vagina has never been stretched open by repeated sexual intercourse. And so therefore, I have to open it. I have to open it for this. And with a straight face, I looked at her and I said, well, that's very interesting. How do you explain when an Indian woman moves to, who's a virgin and gets married and moves to the UK and gives birth to an 8-pound baby with no episiotomy? How do you explain that? Is the weather in England more conducive to vaginal birth? So I did. That's what I asked her. And then I turned to my practice partner, lecture partner, Diane Garland, who was with me on that trip. And I said, Diane, you've been a midwife for over 30 years, is that correct? Yes. And in your career as a midwife in the UK, you've taken care of many Indian women, yes? Oh, yes, absolutely. Lots and lots of Indian women and with Indian partners who, who move here. And in that career of 30 years, how many episiotomies have you cut? And Diane went like this. She went, 0. And so we had this woman doctor listening to this whole thing about the weather changes your vagina in the UK and 0 episiotomies. And Diane, how many women, how many vaginas does that represent in your 30 years? Is that 10 vaginas, or is it, 25? And she said, oh, probably about 4,000. So 4,000 vaginas have never had to be cut. And what's your suture rate? She said, oh, about 1%. So obviously there's some misconnect with, and I'll tell you what the misconnect is. You're in stirrups, you're forced to push. Oh, if I could end one practice around the world, if I could just stop it tomorrow, it would be fundal pressure. And fundal pressure, there's a stool under every delivery table. India, China, Mexico, Argentina, even in the backwaters of the highlands of Panama, there's a stool, and that's so that the nurse can climb up and put her elbow onto the fundus of the laboring and birthing woman and push with all her might. And I told a group of my very last lecture in China was about a week and a half ago, and it was a medical school and nursing school. I had a packed audience, about 200 kids and young people. And I said, if you go into your rotations in a hospital and you see someone doing fundal pressure during a birth, you have my permission to punch them in the face and to knock them off of the stool and to throw the stool across the room. And that all got translated, and there was lots of laughter and everything. And I said, no, I'm serious. You take the person away from the woman and get her in an upright squat. And then I showed the old 1979 squatting video.
The one from Venezuela, I think it is.
Brazil. Yeah. And they were going, you should hear the reactions when I'm in medical schools and nursing schools when they see not only that one, especially the woman that is squatting to birth her placenta, and then she stands up and closes her robe and walks away. Right. It's like, oh, so yes, I like to get, and when I go to teach a Waterbirth course, they don't get Waterbirth until the second day. They get gentle birth and physiologic birth and everything that makes sense. And then we apply the water. And I talk about the benefits of laboring in water, and that water is a tool. It's a possibility that the baby can be born, but it's a tool, and you can't have any fear of it, and the mother has to want it and desire it, and we can't push it on people as a marketing tool. So it has to be genuine. It has to be genuine. But then the other hand is, if I teach Waterbirth and they start seeing how different it is and that women are empowered, then maybe you can take what you learn in the water and apply it to the bed or the birthing stool. And you can do the same things. You can let the baby's head hang on the perineum for 5 minutes, and it's not going to kill the baby. And the baby will, in fact, express its pre-programmed, wired, timed sequence movements that it has to do, including restitution, and stop calling waiting for shoulder dystocia, and call it what it is, failure to wait and panic, and let this new human being accomplish its Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is self-expression and self-actualization of, look, I did this, I got out without any help. And those people who are born that way are different. And especially if they come to what I call the sanctuary. It's a very safe place and it's a sacred place. And that's where every baby needs to go. So I would end fundal pressure, and I would just go around the world and teach skin to skin and kangaroo care with Niels Bergman the rest of my life if I could, because that's what I end up doing in every single one of these countries.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, and we actually had someone write in via email, and she's a childbirth educator, and she says our hospital is interested. I know this is kind of off the topic, but she did want to see this.
I see that, and every single day I help hospitals organize around education. It's education. First, there has to be a need. It has to be consumer-led. First, you need consumers that want it, providers that are mother-friendly first, and then education for the whole staff. If a doctor or a midwife starts a water birth practice in a hospital, it's going to end pretty quickly, because there's sabotage from the nurses. Truly, and if everybody at the institution doesn't support it wholeheartedly, at least knows the research and can talk about it reasonably, then it's doomed for failure. And I'm, back to the ACOG statement, water birth should be considered an experimental procedure. Okay, I'll live with that. And every woman should sign an informed consent. I can live with that as well. We're not going to do randomized controlled trials because they're unfair and unjust, but we can do prospective studies, and there are IRBs that we've written. I can send them out to you. And we can send you an agenda. Our online at waterbirth.org, our online course for water birth education for nurses, water birth certification for providers, will be up and running by the fall. So that anybody can take it at any time on their phone, their tablet, their computer, and get the education that they need. Or one of our team members, including myself, can fly to your location and do a seminar for the whole hospital. I've helped design rooms. I work with architects, planners. I can save you a lot of money if you contact us from the get-go. So that's what I do.
Well, what is the best way to get a hold of you, Barbara?
Barbara at waterbirth.org, or you can go onto our website and there's a form to fill out that says, I would like more of this or more of that or more of anything, and that goes to one of our team members and eventually gets a hold of me. So Barbara at waterbirth.org is my email, and waterbirth.org is our website, and that's the best way.
Great. And besides being one of our general session speakers at the ICEA conference in Denver in October, where else can interested individuals see you and attend your classes coming up?
Let's see. Well, if you'd like to come to Portugal, I'll be in Lisbon on the 12th and 13th of or the 11th, 12th, and 13th of July. And then August, I'm going to be in China again. Oh, there's a great conference, September 23rd and 22nd and 23rd at Cambridge University. It's called Light in Water. And I have been trying to get an interview with Dr. Wallace Nichols for quite some time, so that I can put some statements about his work in my new book, Birth, Bath, and Beyond. And he's written a book called Blue Mind, How Being Near, On, In, or Underwater Changes Your Brain. And he and I are keynotes for that Birth, Light in Water conference at Cambridge University, September 21st, 22nd. That was it, 21st, 22nd. I'm going to be in Holland a week before that. I'll be in Ireland for a few days after that. Let's see, then November, I'm going to be at Middletown, Ohio, at the Atrium Hospital. Yeah, and then right after that, I'm going to be in Minneapolis, Minnesota at Fairview Hospital. And July is Sioux Falls, South Dakota. That's July 17, 18. And then there's a big conference at the October 27, 28 in Oklahoma City, that's open to enrollment for everybody. I'm going to be 2 days, Waterbirth and Embracing the Miracle, How Pregnancy, Birth, and the First Hour Influence Human Potential. So I'll talk a lot about skin to skin and brain wiring and things like that. And then November, the last weekend in November, is in Florence, Alabama. And then I take off and go to Prague for the first weekend in December. And that's a conference I can't wait for. It's me, Diane Garland, talking about Waterbirth, and Frank Lowen, the world's leading expert on breech birth. And he saw me at Cio Parto in Sao Paulo, Brazil 2 years ago, and came up to me and said before my conference, I just can't get with this Waterbirth program. The midwives do it in Germany, and they just, I don't think it's a good idea. I just don't think it's a good idea. And there's not enough research and all that. Then I did my 1.5-hour Waterbirth around the world research and travelogue, and he took a flying leap, jumped up onto the stage, came running to me, put his arms around me and said, I'm convinced. Oh my God, this is amazing. So Frank Lowen and I have stayed in touch, and he's a convert. He's a Waterbirth convert, and converts are great because they proselytize a lot. And so I can't wait to be with him in Prague on December 3rd and 4th. And then I'm taking the rest of the year off.
As you should.
So
well, fantastic. And thank you so much for joining us today, Barbara. I know that your schedule is really busy, and I just really appreciate you taking the time to share things with us. Just as a note for anyone watching, this will be on YouTube later today. It takes about 4 hours for them to process it into a YouTube video, but it will be on my Facebook page, and you can click to it and then share it, and share all of the great information that Barbara has shared with us today.
Okay, bye to everybody. Thank you, Connie, for inviting me. This is the first day that I've felt human since I got back from China with a little bit of dengue fever from mosquitoes. So if you're going to southern China, get your vaccinations, please. That's the only vaccine I recommend. Is yellow fever, because you don't want to be as sick as I was. So
well, I'm glad you're mended up. Good.
Yeah, me too, definitely. And I'll see you in October on the 13th and 14th and 15th in Denver.
Great.
Okay.
Take good care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.